Gabbitt Media.
In this tutorial we're going to be making this house. I'm going to show how to model it and do the UV mapping and texturing. So let's start then. So what we'll do is we'll go through how I model the house, and then we'll talk about how we can texture it. I don't want to go overboard on this because I think it's a fairly straightforward model. If I go wireframe, hopefully you can see that and see how simple these models are. They are all separate objects, so there's a big plane across this bit here, so if I pull that out you can see a massive plane there. Undo that, and so that's just a simple plane with 4 points. It's not subdivided or anything like that, so if I go into edit mode you can see it is just a plane, so it's nice and low poly. So if I'd undo that, and these pieces are all pretty much the same as well, so they're separate objects, very simple, but like I say, they're all the same. Simple cube, elongated, so scaled, subdivided. In fact, I suppose what I'll do is I'll just make another one of those. That'll be the easiest way to explain that. So let's add a cube over here, and then scale it down. I'll just scale it down and then scale in the Y, and you can see I've got a beam there. Okay, so then I'll go into edit mode, press Ctrl R to do a loop cut, and then use my wheel mouse to set it to 2. Cut it in half there, and I can move them along, but if I right click again they'll stay in the same place, so they're exactly the same distance apart. So if I scale these two down and then scale them out by the y-axis, you can see I've sort of got that warped beam feel, and what I've done is for a few of them I've just gone in and grabbed some vertexes and pulled them out. So what I pressed there was Control Tab to go into vertex edge face selection mode, and then just went to vertex and started pulling them about a bit to give it sort of this warped old oak beam feel. Okay, so fairly straightforward again. So I don't think there's anything that's difficult to model there. The roof is 2 separate bits, and then there's a big beam going through the middle there. Again, it's this time rather than just a plane, I actually did a cube and subdivided it. If I just show you there, that's all the subdivisions. So really straightforward. And there's the chimney. Again, just a cube that's been subdivided, extruded. So again, very basic. The main thing about this is the texturing, and that's really what I want to focus on for this tutorial, is the texture. So I'm just going to undo those different bits. Okay, so let's go about texturing this one of the beams, right? Again, in fact, what I've done is textured one of the beams and then copied the texture across to all of them. Copied both the texture and the UV map as well, which I'll explain in a second. So let's go to this object here. If you want to find the UV maps, it's under this option here. Can't remember what it's called. Object data and UV map. So I'll get rid of that UV map, and then it's not unwrapped anymore. And I'm going to unwrap it so you can see how I've gone about doing this. Okay, so into edit mode. Actually, the seams are still marked. I didn't realize that would happen. If you press the period or full stop key on your numpad, then it will center the camera's target around that object. It's a handy little tip. Okay, so I want to unwrap this by marking seams along one edge, and preferably a back edge, so if it does look a bit odd when it's cut, you won't see it, so the edge that's not visible, and these 2 end pieces, because you know with wood the end ends up looking a bit like this, whereas the edges, the sides will have a sort of a grain to it, and the grain ends at the end, so we want those to be mapped in a different way. So I will select these different edges, press Ctrl E to mark seam, and then mark seam in the edges menu. Sorry, Ctrl E brings up the edges menu, then mark seam. So you click mark seam, and I want the back edge to be a seam as well, so I can alt click on that. So alt click will select a loop of edges like this. The loop ends at the edge, the corners there. So press Control E to edge menu and mark seam again, and round here. As you can see, that's already been marked, so Control E, mark seam. If you make a mistake, you can clear all your seams by just pressing A, Control E, and then clear seams. Okay, I'm not going to do that. So at this stage, I want to unwrap. So if I press U to unwrap, we'll just do the basic unwrap for now. There are other options, which I'll go into one more of them in a second. But we'll do an unwrap, and there it is. This is the roof texture, so I'll change this to my oak beam texture. Okay, so there's my oak beam texture. I've got the beam there, and I've got the end there. So I want the end pieces to go over this piece here, and these side, all these edges to go through the oak beam. And so I'll want to move these different seams around. So if I click on one vertices and press L, it will show me the linked object. So when I've cut one section off, you'll see one section in here. That's when you can press L and select one area. They call them islands. And if I grab that and pull it over here, then you can see over here we're getting the end piece with these things. So I'll scale that down a little bit, and you can select different bits, grab and pull them around. I'm just going to go for the vertices. So I've got those all selected, and I can move them around so they're square if I wanted to. It shouldn't make too much difference with wood. Wood warps anyway, and looks funny in different places. I'm using the same texture for each end, but I can just use a different bit. Maybe I'll just come over here. It's got a nice grain there. Right, now these bits, if I press one of them and press link, L for link, and grab it and pull it up, right, so we can see on here that it's not quite working now. Why is that? Maybe you have to sort of figure out by clicking a few. Use this button here to see where you are on the texture. Right, I've got the edges selected, which is handy, so I'm selecting these, and I can see that these are all the wrong way around. They're actually going across there, so this whole thing needs to be rotated. So if I press L, which you can't do in this mode, so I've got to come out of here, select them all over here. So I want to select this group, press L, rotate 90, and now it's the right way around, but it's still looking a bit weird, so I'll scale it down, and then I'll scale it in the X, so SX, and pull it out. Okay, now it's all sort of wobbly and awkward, so what a tip to use is deselect everything, box select these ones, and then press scale X0, so I'm scaling all the same amount, and they'll all go in a nice straight line then. Okay, so A to deselect, C, if I press C, sorry, I can circle select like this. That's handy as well if it's awkward to box select. Scale X0, and they're all in a line now. So I'll just quickly get the other ones and put them in line. Okay, put them in line, and now I could do the same at the top here if I needed to. So press A to deselect, box select those, scale Y0, and it'll put them in line like that. Don't really need to do that, to be honest. What we need to do now is just look at the whole this whole area and think, do we need to scale it out in the X a little bit more? Probably do. About there, grab it and put it into the middle, and there we go. We've got quite a nice oak beam there. At this point, happy with my oak beam, and let's say I wanted to join it to one of the other ones. And what I'll do is I'll quickly create another oak beam which has no UV map or texture added to it, and show you how to link them up. Okay, so I've got two oak beams here, one without a texture or a UV map, and one with a texture and a UV map. So what I could do is go into here and do the whole mapping thing again, but this one has all nicely been set up, and I want to keep that UVs for this one. Now, as long as I've got the same amount of vertices and faces in this one as this one, I can link the two together. So you, in the same way, if you have two materials that you want to add to the same object, you click on the one you want to, or as many as you need, and then last of all you click the one that you want the texture and map to be taken from. Then press Control L. So Control L and transfer UV maps. What I need now is to link the materials up. I'm not sure why it didn't do that. Usually it just links the materials as well, but if it doesn't, then obviously you can just click the first one, then the one you want to take the material from, press Control L, and there should be a material object there. And there we go, we've got the material linked up as well. Okay, so I've got two oak beams now that are the same. If I want to change the look of this and they look too similar because they've got exactly the same mapping, you could easily go in here, grab your linked object, say this was a slightly different size, grab the linked area, and then scale it as you see fit. So that's part one of texturing. I'll tell you how I did these planes and put the window and the door, and then did some texture painting around here to make the plaster look cracked and chipped in the next tutorial.